Welcome to our Student Life panel session. I would now like to introduce some of our current Barnard students and Alicia Lawrence, Executive Director of Residential Life and Housing. Alicia came to Barnard College in April of 2016 as the Executive Director of Residential Life and Housing. While the Dean of the College position is vacant, she's also overseeing student life and conduct and equity, including the Office of Disability Services. Alicia also co-facilitates the Women of Color Support Group, which meets weekly on campus. Prior to her time at Barnard College, Alicia served as Assistant Director of Student Conduct and had significant responsibilities related to Title IX at Rutgers University. She also has served in other conduct and resident life roles at Montclair State University and Ohio University. Alicia received her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and her Master's of Science in Higher Education Administration from Canisius College in Buffalo, New York. A native of New York City, she is the child of parents that immigrated from Jamaica and also the first in her family to attain a college degree. Please welcome Alicia Lawrence.
Thank you. Thank you for such a warm welcome. Thank you for that warm welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. I have the pleasure of joining you and also having an opportunity to introduce you to some of our best and brightest here at Barnard. So I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to you. I'm going to prompt them with a few questions so you get an opportunity to know who they are and all the different parts of the life of Barnard that they represent. And then we'll open it up to a few questions if we have some time still at the end. Sound okay? All right. So we'll start with Fatima.
Okay.
Please introduce yourself. Tell us your name, your major, and your hometown.
Okay, my name is Fatima. I'm a junior. I'm a sophomore. Trying to skip a year already. I'm a sophomore. I'm from San Francisco, California, and I'm a psychology major with a minor in race and ethnicity studies.
Hi, I'm Devin. I'm a junior. I'm from Los Angeles. I went to boarding school in Connecticut, and I'm a bio major, and I'm pre-med.
Hi, my name is Ella Bartlett. I'm a psychology major minoring in English, and I'm from Ames, Iowa.
Hi, my name is Mayat. I am a sophomore. I am thinking about majoring in American Studies with a concentration in media and pop culture, and I'm from Chicago, Illinois.
Wonderful, thank you. Now, if you could each tell us what makes Barnard special to you. We'll start with Mayat.
Okay, so as a sophomore, the college process was pretty recent. And I think as someone that never considered going to a women's college, my college counselor really pushed me to look at Barnard specifically. And I was like, I don't know. But then my mom had me come and visit. And when I stepped onto campus and I went on the tour, the way that I would walk around campus and people would just smile at me and wave at my tour guide and just be really interested in what I wanted to do, what I wanted to study. And then I came again during Barnard Admitted Students Weekend and meeting other prospective students that were just didn't specifically know what they wanted to do, but they just had a lot of passion and a lot of really cool interests that I really had. And so I just got that feeling that I knew this was the place for me.
Awesome. Ella?
Yeah, I'm a senior. Sorry, I didn't mention that earlier. I think one of the things that makes Barnard so special is that it's a community within the greater community of Columbia, within the greater New York community. And there's really so many opportunities to not only see amazing artists and scientists and thinkers from New York City who come to Barnard to share what their work, what they've done with Barnard students, but also for Barnard students to step outside of this home, right outside of this little, this safe haven and explore the greater New York area. From someone coming from Iowa, that's something that I didn't have in my small, it wasn't that small, I came from a university town, but you're not really sheltered here, and there's always opportunities for you to go outside of your comfort zone, although you still have the safe home base of Barnard.
Thank you. Devin?
I think for me, what made Barnard so special was the people, and I've just found that to be true throughout my time here. The students are so supportive, and I hear from my friends at other schools about people being competitive and it being a cutthroat culture, but here at Barnard, everyone wants everyone else to succeed just as much as they want to succeed themselves. And so I have tons of study groups for all my classes. The support systems from everyone in all like aspects of administration are great. They're there to support you like in every aspect, whether it be like career advice, mental health. They're just an amazing and welcoming community that I just feel at home here.
Fatima?
Similar to what Ella was saying, I feel like Barnard is kind of like the best of both worlds, where you have this really small campus and you know your professors. I know a lot of my professors by their first name and they know me by my first name, and I feel like I can really go to them. And I went to a really small private school, so I felt like I wanted that to continue, but I also wanted to meet more people and all sorts of people, and so I feel like being in New York City gives you that opportunity. And I think when I was looking for colleges, I also really wanted a social justice component or somewhere where my identities would be focused on and appreciated and supported, and I feel like Barnard has really offered me that.
Wonderful, thank you. So Fatima, I'm actually going to start back this way. So Fatima, why don't you tell us all the extracurricular activities that you're involved in?
Okay, so I currently serve on the e-board for Mujeres, which is our Latinx affinity group on campus. I also am working with the Latinx Heritage Month Committee. So that's happening now, and it's in collaboration with Columbia, so we're planning a lot of events and bringing people onto campus. I just started working in admissions on the social media team, so I'm running, helping run like our admissions blog and our Instagram and our other sort of like outreach programs for new students. I worked in student life last year as a community assistant, so I helped plan events and meetups for students on campus. And I'm a contributor to Hoot magazine, which is our fashion magazine on campus.
Wonderful, thank you. Devin?
I'm a first-year RA. This is my second year being a first-year RA in the quad. I love it. I love the quad. I'm also on the Barnard Columbia women's rowing team, which is amazing. The women's rowing team has the largest number of Barnard athletes, which is awesome. And I'm also in a sorority.
Ella, thank you.
I play clarinet for the Columbia University Wind Ensemble. I'm also the student administrator of the Barnard International Artist Series, where we bring in an international artist to come and talk at Barnard. I'm also a part of the Writing Fellows, and I'm a Writing Fellow for that program. And I also do work in the Science Fellow portion of that, the program, because I'm in a lab. I do research on neuroscience and linguistics over at Columbia, and I like to talk about science writing too.
May you tell us all the things you're involved in?
So I serve as the historian this year for BOSS, which is Barnard's organization for Soul Sisters. I am also the secretary for Bacchanal, which is our spring concert that happens every year where we bring artists to campus. And then I'm a peer ed for Well Women as well. I'm also an RA for upper class students in Plimpton. And I am a campus DJ, so I have a radio show every Wednesday.
So as you can hear, we have some varied interests, right? And so many involvements. And so I'm going to actually turn this back to the students to tell us what your most valuable experience at Barnard has been thus far. Anyone can start.
I'm gonna start. The Writing Fellows program has been an incredible community, but also space for thought and for open questioning of every aspect of Barnard that I've been involved in. At first I came in wanting to be an English major, and writing and being a creator is still a big part of my life. But as I became more involved in the scientific community with my psychology major, I was at a point in a conundrum where I was like, do I want to do science or do I want to do more of an artistic route? And the Writing Fellows program has really tied that together for me, because I've realized that communication in all domains is extremely important, and I've been able to apply the way of critical thinking that I've learned within that program to the writing that I've done with the lab and my other psychology courses. So that's been probably my most valuable, although I've had a lot of valuable experiences here.
Thank you.
For me, it was last year watching my residents grow throughout the year. During NSOP, the Student Orientation Program, first-year RAs, we meet one-on-one with each of the first years. And so we ask them all these questions about what they want to get involved in, what they're nervous about, what they're excited about at Barnard. And so we make this spreadsheet of everyone's interests on your floor. And so throughout the year, I just got to see my residents become more comfortable, find their interests within the community. And so a lot of them came to me with all of these different interests, and they weren't sure how to pursue them. And so you get to be there as their support system and help them find these areas with which they feel comfortable on campus. And so throughout the year, you get to see them make friends, and you see them find their groove at Barnard. And so at the very end of the year, I had this resident come up to me and tell me about how she started her own club and how she was making the bylaws and how she has all this interest from everyone at the Barnard and Columbia community. And it was really exciting to see everyone getting leadership positions at the end of the year and just really finding their spot at Barnard and being able to feel that you were a part of that. So it was really special.
Awesome.
Okay, mine is a very specific example, but I feel like it speaks to a larger thing. So last year I had the privilege of being one of Dean Hinkson's advisees, and so I came into Barnard declaring I was pre-law, and then a couple of weeks in, I remember I called my mom and I was freaking out because I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't want to do pre-law anymore. I don't know what I'm going to major in, what's going to happen. And so I scheduled an appointment with Dean Hinkson, and I went to talk to her. And I went in there and I was freaking out, as a first year, having no idea what was happening. And she was just sat with me for an hour and just kind of walked me through it and said, you don't need to know right now, first of all, so calm down. And we talked about all of the options, all of my interests. For a while, I thought I was going to create my own major. We talked about how that wasn't going to happen, and just all of these things, and just having her listen to me and kind of talk to me. And I feel like I've been able to find so many mentors on campus where things like that happen all the time. And because I'm from California, I obviously am super far away from my family, so that's been a hard adjustment. And being able to have that support system on campus has been a huge deal for me. So when I can't really call my mom and scream about what's going on, we have things like the Women of Color support group, which is really nice for me to just go and talk about what's going on and hear from people who know a lot more than I do. So that's been what's most important to me so far.
I think I've had so many valuable experiences, but my mind jumps to the experiences that I've had with alums specifically. As I said before, I'm in BOSS, and there was a BOSS president, past president, who reached back to the club because she's Issa Rae's publicist, and she was like, I'm gonna be in New York, and if you guys wanna come and volunteer at this event that we're doing, and so, and as someone that wants to work in media after somewhere in entertainment, we'll see what happens. And she was just like, you can come, and I'm a resource. And so and Issa Rae is such a role model for me. And so through that connection, I was able to eat Issa Rae multiple times because I volunteered for her. And so that was just a really great experience. And I don't think I would have been able to have that anywhere else.
Awesome. So we will turn it to all of you to ask questions of the students and their experience. I think there's one other mic floating around, and I'll come around with this mic.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Rona. I'm class of 91. We were actually talking amongst ourselves about the housing situation, and we were curious, what is your take on the housing, either needs or adequacies or inadequacies that Barnard has? Because I'm pretty sure that my single in Brooks is now a quad. So can you speak to what's going on with that?
Yeah.
I know students, be brave.
So I'm in Souls right now, but I was in Brooks last year. The Brooks rooms are definitely very different. Each room is a whole different look than the next one. So a lot of there's these Brooks walk-through doubles, which are large and incredible, and they have this fireplace. And there are Brooks rooms that have like 3 windows and like a lookout and a walk-in closet. And then there are really small doubles in Brooks. Souls is more like structured rooms where they're all kind of equal. And we have AC in Souls, which is beautiful. And so I definitely had happier residents for those couple hot days living in Souls than some of the RAs who didn't have AC in their rooms. But yeah, I guess. Does that speak to your question? Is that kind of?
Okay. Who's the next person? I gave my mic away.
Thank you. I'm just kind of curious on how you all felt when you first arrived at Barnard at handling the workload. And I'm not talking your extracurricular activities, which probably didn't happen until after your first semester. But how did you feel that first semester when, you know, the reality of all the homework hit?
I mean, I went to a private school where we were like known as like, oh, you guys don't have social lives because you're always doing homework. That was like a trope that we were always like talked about. And so I think coming in, I felt really prepared, but I think I soon realized that it's a very different type of work than high school, where it was this sort of like 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. you're in class, and then whatever else you're doing, and then you do homework for a certain amount of hours. Whereas like here, my first year on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I only had 1 class, so I had a lot more free time to sort of do homework or prepare myself. And so I don't think that I ever felt like any of the work I had was not manageable. I just think that it came in waves, and sort of I mean, we're in midterm season right now, so I think we can attest to the fact that like there's a lot going on, and things sort of tend to come at you all at once in terms of like you have tests and papers all happening at like once, but I don't think that it's like this every week kind of thing. You know, like I feel like there are weeks where I don't have that much going on academically, and then there are other weeks where I'm a lot more strained because I have upcoming exams.
And to that point, it's kind of about like time management, and like it's not actually. For me, it was difficult to, like you were saying, those hours where you could be doing anything. You have to like parse it out yourself. And I found a lot of support in going and saying like, oh, like to a friend who maybe I didn't know very well, like, do you want to study together? And kind of making that a thing. I think there's an encouragement of like productive and collaborative work spaces here on campus.
I jumped into my first week of college with 20-hour rowing practices in addition to school, so that that made me realize, like the first week of school, that wow, I have to budget my time. And I think that that was good that I had that reality check really early before midterms hit. But it really showed me that I need to like utilize my time well and schedule meetings and schedule everything into a calendar and make sure that I was ready for the week ahead.
Yeah, similarly to what everyone else said, I definitely agree with that. Also, I think in my experience, all of my professors hold office hours, and if you can't go to their office hours, then you can like meet with them specifically, and I think that's a huge help because if you go to them and say, I have 2 midterms on this day, can I turn in my paper like a day later? The professor's like really willing to work with you because they understand that like Barnard students do a whole host of things. Like I think that's also what makes Barnard really great. Like I don't know any students that are just like strictly academics. Like you have like students that are like Devin, for example, pre-med and then like an athlete. And then in these extracurriculars, there's like a lot of multidisciplinary students.
I think I already know the answer based on what you've said, but one of my regrets as a student is not reaching out to my professors enough and feeling, I think, some intellectual paranoia that I wasn't good enough for their time. I didn't want to waste their time. And do you feel like you're good enough for your professor's time, or do you engage with them outside of class, or your advisors, are they helping you through your time here? Do you feel like you have a connection with them beyond the classroom to help manage everything?
Some professors are definitely more approachable than others, and I've found it difficult to get up that courage also to go up and talk to a professor. But I think one of the things that I've learned to value here is like the discussion of ideas, and some professors will be running off to a book talk or have to go to like if they have clients themselves as a psychologist or something like that. But I found an openness if like you come up and approach them.
This is sort of like an ideological shift, I think, that I've noticed. And I don't know if it's specific to the psychology department, but the majority of my psych professors have shifted in their syllabus to rename office hours student hours. And so they've said that like they specifically want it to be known that those hours are for us, because they said when they were called office hours, a lot of people assumed they were working or grading. And so my professors say like during that hour or hour and a half, we're putting everything away, we're sitting there, they're like, please come or else I'm gonna be bored just sitting there. And so even just that like shift in vocabulary really makes it a lot easier, because I'm like, okay, you know, this hour's for me, like I might as well go. And so also some of them don't meet in their offices. So one of my professors this year, he meets in this like open space. And so there's just like tables and chairs and you kind of just go whenever, and just there are other students most of the time and you can all talk together. So we had an exam last week, and for the day before he did that. And so there were just a lot of students kind of around a table and we were just talking. But I think that sort of mentality makes a huge difference.
Just in general, do you guys talk about financial aid amongst yourselves as students? Is it a conversation just money-wise that you guys are open and willing to have, or is it still feel taboo to you?
Barnard's expensive. Yeah, it's still difficult to talk. It's difficult.
I think it depends on the space. I've been in really warm and like really comfortable spaces on campus where I felt really comfortable talking about financial aid. But I feel like on a day-to-day basis, there's still a little bit of a taboo.
I think in my experience, most of the conversations that have happened about financial aid haven't been very positive. And so it's mainly been with like low-income students and sort of talking about the issues and kind of navigating the space. And so I think it's not something that's just like brought up at the dinner table in like this like fun way. It's more like, oh no, this has happened, like what are we gonna do about it kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Fatima, but I think the students that have been organizing with like Flip, like I think they have been a very positive force in like making it more comfortable on like campus to like talk about those issues and like to even like identify as a student that could be first gen or low income or both, and that has been like really driven by students, and like I would love to like credit them with that.
Well, the group is like FGLI,
GLI.
but Flip is the new lending library in
Library.
Milstein, so it's
Yeah.
like for low-income students.
Yeah.
Are you friendly with any Columbia students that you compare notes with about how resident life is? How does it compare?
Are we talking about like housing specifically or just like life? Okay, college.
Okay. I feel like as an RA, like with housing specifically, like talking to my friends at Columbia, like whether they be Columbia RAs or just Columbia residents too, like there's a difference in like the residential curriculum. Like I feel like at Barnard, like especially in the res halls and like especially after like when you're a first year, like there's an extension of like the orientation program, and like as an RA, like we have to like plan programs that build community within the halls, so you don't feel like there's always somewhere around, because I feel like in college the residence halls can be a great place to feel like, because that's like an extension of home, and if you don't feel comfortable where you're living, like that can affect your academic life, your social life, etc. And so some of my friends at Columbia in the res halls, it's kind of like they're like, we don't have programming like that, you know. I don't even know who my next door neighbor is, and I don't bond with my hall in the same way. And so yeah.
Yeah, I know a bunch of people who are Columbia RAs, and it's definitely not the same structure. And I've spoken to a lot of people and asked them, oh, who's your RA? And they've responded either, I don't have an RA, which is not true.
Which is not
Or
true.
I have no idea who my RA is. And they've told me that they have a floor meeting like once a year, and it's 5 minutes. And so,
Right.
but I've heard from like my residents and like other Barnard residents that like they like that they have this Barnard support system. And like I love being a Barnard RA, so.
Yeah, and speaking to just like college life in general, I think based on those conversations, I'm very happy that I'm at Barnard, because I think our stress culture is extremely different, and I feel like there's way more support. It's much less competitive, and it's more about helping each other than sort of like, oh, we have to be better than one another. And we were actually talking about this yesterday, I think, just kind of like the very different ways that people approach just college life in between the two campuses, and kind of how I've heard a lot of Columbia students, even guys, who are like, man, I really wish I could go to Barnard. And I'm like, well, you can't, but you know, it's very different, and I feel like there's a lot more support and community on our campus.
I don't know if the Columbia RAs feel this way, but in my sophomore year, I was living in an RA suite with an RA, and she expressed that there was a lack of support for the RAs in general, and I don't know if that's changed since my sophomore year, but can I flip it to the two RAs here? Do you feel that there's like a community within the RAs?
Yes. My best friends are RAs. I hang out with RAs all the time. I text my HD if I need anything. She's always there for me. I still text my old HD. She's also great. Yeah, I love the Res Life staff and like my peers and my supervisors.
Agreed with Devin. Yeah.
Yeah.
My question has to do with conflict resolution. And I'm wondering whether in the course of either the courses you're taking or in the individual extracurricular that you're all involved in, when conflicts come up, have you received any training in how to respectfully enable people to share their point of view, and how do you find common ground, and how do you move forward?
I can answer that from a res life perspective. We do conflict resolution training during our RA training, and so that teaches us how to approach very different conflicts, whether it be roommate conflicts and anything like within roommate conflicts, whether that be like a differing in sleep style or like broader ideology differences. And so with that, we also have we call it behind closed doors, which is they're like mock scenarios where we'll have RAs knock on the door and we'll have RAs behind the door acting out a scenario, and the RA coming into the situation will have to handle the situation, and like the people who are acting in the situation can throw anything at that person in the room. And this year it was really exciting. We had campus partners also be a part of that. So that was like firm and counseling. We had public safety. We had the health center all come for different conflict situations that might come up. And for each of those specific scenarios, we had the campus partner that corresponded with that conflict.
Yeah. Also, if you serve on an executive board of a club, whether it be here at Barnard or across the street, you have to complete a program called Club Refuel so you can get your allocation for the year. And so during that program, you have to like learn about like conflict resolution and like how to talk respectively to people with all different types of identities. And like we talk about like mental health as well. So yeah.
One of the things that the Writing Fellow program has taught me is to be curious and to ask questions. And normally a conflict, or sometimes a conflict, can arise from a lack of understanding between two people, and how to facilitate that understanding better.
Hi. I think when I came to Barnard back in '73, I understood that I was going to a women's college, but I didn't know what it would feel like. And I was surprised when I came here and there were two men who walked into a class of 80 people, and I said, wait, why aren't there more men here? And then it dawned on me about the decision that I'd made. That's an extreme example, but I'm wondering whether being at a women's institution has had a discernible impact on you personally, and if you could describe that.
I feel like I have an incredible extended family with every Barnard woman I meet, whether I'm in their domain or whether I'm a few years younger or older. My mother went to Mount Holyoke, and I felt a pressure, honestly, to go to an all-women's college. And Barnard was, it had the city and it had Columbia, and I was like, I'll give it a try. And I am very, very happy that I did.
Yeah, I think for me, it's been this sort of mentality shift in a way, where, you know, seeing women dominating the classroom has been very different, because previously in academic settings, I noticed a lot of my female peers would kind of shy away from speaking up, and when they did, they'd be like, this could be totally wrong, but you know, that sort of thing. And here it's like everyone's very outspoken, and they're just kind of like, I'm here, this is what I think, deal with it. And so I think it's been a really empowering sort of experience. And when there are men in the room, like especially on this campus, I notice that they're the ones who are like shying away. They're like, I'm sorry, like it's really interesting to see how they sort of navigate that. And so I think when I'm outside of Barnard, even when I'm in a male-dominated space, I feel a lot more comfortable speaking up and, you know, taking up space.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you both have said. I also think that today, like with everything that's going on in the world, it's been an amazing community, and it's just been incredible to be here and to be with like these amazing women, and you just feel supported all the time. And right now I'm in a class called Women in Science, and we kind of just talk about this all the time and talk about women in science throughout the world and women in science at Barnard specifically, and it's just been incredible to see this because I am a woman who wants to go into science, so it's been great. And I think that that's a course that you can really only take at a few places, so.
Hi, Georgie Contaguglia from Denver. I just have not heard anything today about gender identity, and I'm wondering if that is because the topic is very comfortable and things have been very nicely handled at Barnard, or whether it's gone underground, so to speak. So I wonder if any of you can talk about gender identity at all as it pertains, you might not be able to say as it pertains to admissions, but certainly to life on campus.
I'm not sure what it is in admissions. I can't speak to that, but I know that I have a couple gender non-binary friends, and I've gotten into the habit of using they as a pronoun to refer to students in general, and not saying like a Barnard student if she wants, so I think that's something that I've been made aware of from Barnard students. I don't know, I appreciate their, like, the presence of, like, the conversations and the challenging of that is very present here on campus in, like, all of the activities that I'm involved in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's enough, but I think, I don't know if anyone else has had the same experience, but every single one of my classes, when we do introductions on the first day, pronouns are always used. So that's always one of the questions, like, where, your name, where are you from, what are your pronouns? Because I think we're trying to avoid making assumptions. And so I know that it isn't this huge thing, but I think in a small way, it can make people feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah. Also, I just want to add to that, because I definitely agree with Fatima. I think students, though, are still trying to push the way that we talk about students, like whether it be on like a website or like emails that are sent out saying like your daughter, or like just maybe like that's like the next step, like getting to change those pronouns with emails that are sent out and on like what's used on the website.
But also I think that kind of challenges the definition of Barnard as a women's college.
Right.
And I'm
That's
not
true.
sure how that's going to go forward.
Very true.
Hi, I'm Catherine Brewster, Barnard class of 1971, and I'm curious to hear about how your experience with the Me Too movement on campus, and also how or whether or not that conversation, well, from a number of perspectives, women being clear about saying no, and also exploring ways in which we as women may in fact also be sexually inappropriate. So the whole range, those are just some specific things, but I'm curious as to your experience on campus with the Me Too.
I think I can speak to just like recent events. And so with the Kavanaugh hearing, there were a lot of conversations on campus and a lot of spaces to sort of look for resources during that time, because it was obviously a very difficult situation. And, there were a lot of questions, and I know some classes actually like didn't do normally scheduled class and they watched it and discussed it. But I think that being on a college campus, sexual assault is a really serious issue, and I think that we talk about it, but I don't think we do enough to address it. And I think that there's room to grow, because like it's only been 2 years here, but the conversations that have been had is like, this is a serious issue and it's an ongoing issue. And there seems like there isn't a lot of accountability, and I think that's a really big issue, and there's a lot of like student organizing around it, but it seems like administration-wise, sometimes it's unclear like what's happening, so.
Yeah, I agree. We have a lot of Title IX and sexual violence response training for Res Life and for athletics. And I feel like with that, there's been a lot of conversations about the communication between Barnard and Columbia and that relationship. And I think with that, there's a lot of room to grow. And I feel that at Barnard, there are a ton of conversations and there's a ton of support and there's a great community, but I feel like there's a little bit of disconnect. So hopefully that.
I think two things that I've thought of recently is one, that there's been a lot of art on campus by Barnard students that have come out of it, and communities who have like put together an event where people can read their poetry or like journals that have been about the woman's experience about this. And second, I think this emphasizes how important it is to have mental health services that are like very substantial on a campus, because although there are all these amazing opportunities on campus to get involved in communities that talk about this sort of thing and have this sort of support, talking to professionals is also a very important avenue of feeling better about it.
Yeah, I think one change that I have seen is that last year there were some instances where like clubs had to have like sexual assault like conversations after the fact that it happened, but there's an amazing department here who's led by Kristen Kennedy, being Barnard, and she does a lot of like, she facilitates a lot of conversation around how you would respond to like sexual assault if you're like a student leader, if someone like confides in you with that. And so what she's been working on with student groups specifically this year is how to have those conversations before something happens, and how to like student leaders see like how to look for signs and like how to talk about that in a way that is comforting for people that have probably already experienced it in that space.
There's been some, I don't know if it was Harvard Business Review, talking about the difference of being gender aware versus gender blind, and how you as a woman carry yourself and think about yourself in basically a work environment, and what that means for you and your success, basically because you're working in a co-ed environment. Do you guys talk about that theme and like how to think of the importance of like women's rights and our strength and power as a woman, and that comes super clear as Barnard, versus entering a workforce as approaching it as gender blind? I don't know if you guys even talk about it, so it's just an interesting thing to know if that's part of the conversation now.
I'm in the Athena Scholars Leadership Program, and so we have like a lot of conversations surrounding that theme, and we even have these like leadership labs that we like have to go to, and they bring in really cool people that facilitate conversations around that, and they come in and we have like 2 hours with those people. So someone came in and talked about how to negotiate your contract as a woman at like, if you're like a woman in finance or just at any corporation. So like that was a really cool program that we did. And then last week they had storytellers come in to teach us how to tell stories, but like that's also very useful, because if you like for you to talk about yourself in an elevator pitch, because like storytelling is like an art where you have to be like really concise. And so I feel like those conversations are being held a lot in that program.
Well, thank you very much.